We've been sold the lie that debate sharpens thinking.
Well, it does the exact opposite.
Debate spawns competition, not collaboration.
And there is absolutely zero alignment.
Us versus them. Is there a better way? Leadership DM. Learn how anyone like you can become an irreplaceable leader of unstoppable teams. Welcome to Leadership DM. Who the hell am I? I'm Andrew McGuire. I am the co-founder of Brick and Matter, as well as the experience marketing lead for 120 VC.
Hey everyone, I am Faith Crossman. I am 120 VC's marketing execution lead.
Jay's out today, but he's left a direct message. His latest article dropped, The Debate Maker, where opinion evolves into optimal solutions. It's part of his Unleashing the Irreplaceable series, where he breaks down Liz Weissman's book, The Multipliers. He takes one by one the 5 behaviors of a multiplier into practical leadership practices.
And if you haven't already read it, it will change how you lead. Maybe even change your life. Download and read it today.
Really changed my life. All right, Faith, let's get into it. Debate is the wrong frame. In the article, Jay says, what most leaders call debate is actually competition, a contest to win, not to learn.
Yes, and that hits because that's exactly what happens. If you invite a group of people into a room and you say, this is a debate, and this debate's going to lead to ideas, maybe even solutions. Not true. Because in the end, those people are going to come together. And when they hear that word debate, they are going to look to see who has the better ideas, who has the better solution, which only breeds competition and a winner at the end. And guess what? You're not walking out of there with any good ideas.
Totally. It's like whatever you do, don't think of an elephant. Well, guess what? You're all thinking of an elephant. You're seeing an elephant. So when we frame it as debate, even with the best intent, like we're going to debate the ideas, we're going to get to the soft thing, but just that frame puts people in that posture where everyone immediately stops listening and starts defending. And I mean, like, we see it every day. We're in marketing, we work with sales. And then like when we're put together in the same meeting, inevitably we're both like defending our turf. You're defending what you've done, what you haven't done, versus stopping to collaborate and listen.
Which in the end only breeds sides, and there's really no way to have collaboration when there's two different sides, like you said, at a turf war with each other.
People just start thinking about how to sound smart, not how to understand. And then welcome to the modern quagmire that is the workforce today.
Indeed.
So what debate actually creates? Jay says, debate creates winners and losers. It shuts down thinking, reinforces ego, power, and diminishes the collective intelligence. When Jay says diminishes the collective intelligence, I was like, yep, that's every meeting I've been in where people care more about being right than getting it right. And so like the collective IQ, I think is such an important side of this, because even if you are the smartest person on the planet, right? Like if you have a room full of other smart people, just obviously I'm not the smartest person on the planet. I don't math very well, but my math says though that multiple number is going to be the smart number, IQ number any day. I mean, unless maybe you surround yourself with very, very low IQ people, or maybe yourself have a very low IQ, but it's all about that collective IQ and opening people up and bringing people together. I like the old quote, like, you know, if you want to move fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Really shifting from that premise to a new frame is where Jay's pushing.
Yeah. And the challenging aspect about focusing on debate with that group of people is that you are silencing the quieter individuals who might be the ones in the room with the highest IQ, but they don't have that personality or desire to bark back or defend their stance. They don't have that ego. So in the end, they're kept quiet and their brilliance is muted.
You want the best ideas in the room, not the loudest ideas. And I'm a loud guy sometimes.
With great ideas. With great ideas.
Well, obvi. But all right. So, but how do we get here? That false debate maker. How do we get to this point where like either it's not okay to debate, everybody just like consensus and puts their head down, or there's the false premise of debate that we have to debate everything and that everybody should have an opinion. Every Zoom meeting, every meeting, you know, if you're invited. Somehow, first off, that's not a problem. Too many people are invited. But if you're invited to the meeting, like you have to say something or else you're not contributing. And then so when you then add the false debate maker frame to it, everybody feels like they have to debate every idea, challenge every idea, ask why 100 times like a 4-year-old. So Jay frames this: the false debate maker thinks they are encouraging intellectual rigor, but what they're actually hosting is a competitive arena.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there are so many leaders like that out there today, and because they feel like they're doing the right thing, which is understandable. They think that the intention is to collect everyone, and to your point, everyone in that group doesn't actually need to be there to create that good outcome or ideas. And so many leaders do this with good intent, of course. Just as Liz Wiseman says in her book, this desire to bring debate is supposed to be with the intention of spawning good ideas, which makes perfect sense. However, the method behind it is not the best, unfortunately.
All heat, no light. For me, I've been that false debate maker. So in my past life, I was a creative director at multiple ad agencies. A big tactic of creative directors, like Mad Men style, is to get your creative teams in a room and you want them to like set up and defend an idea, almost like a court case. Like if you could defend it, it's flawless, and yeah, they could defend an idea and tell you how smart it is and great, which was only awesome if that idea already was the best idea possible. But in the brainstorm process and in the building process, it stunts the growth. You stop right there. And then it's all about making the idea right and defensible versus having one team build on another team's idea and another team's idea. So as well-intended as it is, it just triggers that automatic fight or flight, especially as Americans, we're like, we're right. We want to be right. Especially with the insecurity of like people feeling like imposter syndrome and all these different things. People have these huge chips on their shoulder where they just want to be right because they're lacking psychological safety and confidence and all the things. So that's the false debate maker. That is really what Jay's taken on in this article. He frames that maybe there's a better way forward. The real debate maker. So Jay says the real debate maker replaces debate with active listening and structured collaboration. To me, that is the unlock. It's not about winning. It's about evolving those ideas. And it's not saying we don't test the ideas with criteria. We'll get more into that in a little bit. But it's really about getting to better thinking.
You're not trying to prove your idea against someone else, battling it out. No, you're trying to improve the idea, challenging the work here.
Of course, Jay is the man with the plan. We're all about giving you the tools on how to do this. We're not going to leave you high and dry. So active listening is the key really to unlock this. Jay says, active listening helps people feel heard, explore ideas without judgment, and build a shared understanding. The article, he breaks down the 5 steps to active listening, which is to question, reflect, empathize, clarify, and summarize. So questioning, how the hell do we do that? That's your question.
Questioning in the process of active listening is such a key driver in showing that you are listening and that you care to what somebody is saying. You're asking questions, open-ended questions with curiosity. I read something recently that said, you are not a sponge in this conversation. You're not just listening, going, yeah, and staring blankly at the person. No, you are a trampoline. They are shooting ideas at you and you are bouncing them right back at them with critical questions, which just shows that you are engaged in the conversation.
Yes, and the best way to engage with questioning is not a framing or leading question, but asking open-ended questions with genuine curiosity. We always quote ourselves some Ted Lasso around here, which is actually a quote of another quote. But to be curious, not judgmental. So asking open-ended questions, engaging, especially when you're talking to subject matter experts, how they will complete the work, seeking to understand, not to judge. Right? Like this video we're doing right now. I'm going to we're going to give these files to our editor. I'm going to ask, okay, so how are you going to edit this video? An open-ended question. And then that'll allow them to walk through like, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I really like this part of the video, this. And so when they walk it through, then I could do the next step, which is reflecting. I could play back what I heard in my own words to confirm my understanding that I'm actually tracking with what they're saying. And then I could be, okay, cool. And then it also can form an opportunity to start that collaboration back and forth. Because then I could be like, oh, well, actually, I really like this part of the video. Why don't we do this, this, and this? And if I didn't have that question, they'd have been like, cool, I got it. I'm going to go edit it. They disappear for 3 or 4 days. And how many times have you experienced this, Faith, where like, when there's not that questioning, it's like, cool. I heard one thing, they heard another thing. And then you come back 2 weeks 2 days later, whoop, there it is. You drop the file there, and it's like, that is not what I was looking for, because you didn't question. And to question shows that not only that curiosity and understanding, but it opens the door to collaboration. Reflecting isn't just nodding, doing the body language, which is important to show that you're listening, the nodding, but reflecting what you heard back, reframing it. That way it's for their benefit as much as it is for yours, because they're like, oh, they're listening to me. They get me.
Mm-hmm. And then if you're not understanding and you exhibit that in your moment of reflection, you can empathize with them and take that moment and that opportunity to say, okay, I've asked you all these questions. You've answered those questions with, more explanation. I've reflected on it. I'm trying to understand it. And maybe I don't. That's okay. I'm going to exhibit now a moment of empathy.
And that takes us to the third step, which is empathizing. And especially when it doesn't make sense how the hell they're going to do it after you've reflected, like, oh, so you're going to do it this way. And right away, you might want to, as a leader, kick in and you'd be like, oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. They should do it this way, and this way. And then you're going to want to shit all over them. You should do it like this. You should do it like this. And then you're just going to crush them. And obviously, you got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. You maybe didn't understand how they're going to do it. So this is where that step 3 empathy comes in. And for me, the best way we like to unlock empathizing is starting with the question is like, well, help me see how that works. Help me understand. And our tool for doing that, we use at 120, is experience shares. Because instead of saying how you're going to do it, then they're going to a defensive mode or an overly like academic mode. Well, I'm going to do this and this and this. And they might get super technical and everybody's eyes glaze over. Versus then asking the experience share. So in our scenario here about this video, it might be like, when did you have a time when you were editing 2 amateur people talking with a lot of rabbit trails and you needed to edit together into something awesome to honor Jay Scott's work, or somebody else's work? How would you do that? Like ask them a specific experience share of a similar time. And then they will start sharing a human experience. And more times than not, when they're sharing a story, you'll see yourself in a story. There's such power in a narrative. I think say, well, I did this and it solved a problem. For one, it forces them to pull from theory into actual practice. And then me as a human, I can then empathize, because I can be like, oh, fuck. I remember too, I was one time, in a scenario like that with the CEO who wanted this, but that wasn't what we had on tape, and blah, blah, blah. And then now we can connect and we can build on that idea. So there's such power in using experience share to create that empathy and that collaboration.
I do pride myself on asking a million questions, because I think that's just, that's the best way to get to where you need to go. So I've
You
asked
are a
all
hell
of
of
my
a question asker.
I reflected on the answers that have been given back. And then, I probably had those moments many a times where I'm still confused. What are they trying to get to? What are we trying to accomplish here? And then they start to give me those experience shares, or I show that empathy by asking questions of a time that ... or whatever. And then all of a sudden that light bulb moment goes off in my head, because then I see an experience that I went through that I can relate to. And I start to see and have that clarity, which once I do, we're now venturing into the 4th step, which is clarifying. I sit back and I go, oh my gosh, yes. So this is what you're trying to say? Or this is a moment that I experienced that might relate back to your experience and what you were trying to get to drive these outcomes and these results. And we both have those magically twinkles in our eyes while we look at each other, and we have that clarity and alignment, and it's a beautiful thing.
The light bulb moment, where the aha,
Yes.
like what Jay says about that kind of clarifying moment too. It's not like the 60 minutes gotcha question, the clarifying of like, aha, so what you're saying is, to catch him, but instead it's doubling down on that earned trust that you've got through asking those challenging questions, not to catch those errors, but really get that conceptual understanding of, okay, cool, yes, that is how you're going to edit the video. Now I have so much trust in the world, and they have trust too, that we've formed this plan together, so there's not a surprise when they pull up for the rough edit on what happened.
Well, and I think it makes them feel confident and safe too, because there's nothing more intimidating than coming to a group of people with your thoughts or ideas or solution and, have them pepper you with questions. Or maybe you're going to someone who has authority over you, and, they're doing the usual leader thing where it's the okay, and that's intimidating, and so if you're building that culture of trust and they feel like you are really genuinely listening to them for them to understand you, not just for them to be, hovering over you as your leader or superior, you then have that moment of confidence, or that the speaker has that moment of confidence. And so you as the leader to instill that in them is really critical.
Clarify, isn't so much that as the leader, exactly how they're going to do it, because ultimately you hired them to do it. So you're like, I don't need to know how the sausage is made. But the main thing is clarifying the when and the what. Because they're the who and they're handling the how. So if you know the when, then there's no surprise. But this whole clarifying and engagement allows you to kind of close that loop. So it's not like you spend 30 minutes having this great brainstorming this idea and it doesn't attach to action at the end. 2 weeks later, you're like, well, where did that project go? But really clarifying that when and how it's going to happen. But since you've had that conversation, there's not a surprise. It's not a defensive. It's not a debate. It's just purely like building that shared trust and roadmap to getting it done.
Yes, and connecting this back to being that real debate maker rather than that false debate maker. You are encouraging your team member to present to you their most well thought out idea in a place where they feel safe to do so, because they know that you have and are listening closely. You're not just sitting back going, okay, duke it out. Who's got the best one? No, you are just as involved, which is very important in great leadership and in being that real debate maker.
Got to be reals.
Got to be real.
Yeah. And so the fifth step here, that active listening cycle, summarizing. And that could just be the quick statement if it's a conversation. Cool. This is what we're doing, the why, how, when, what. Right on, high five or Zoom high five, and then you're off doing it. And of course, a great tool for that are meeting notes, a summary, because then you have a quick record. Because chances are, whether this was a hallway meeting, a Zoom meeting, or a big corporate meeting, you have a meeting after that, and after that, and after that, and after that. And for me, it's like, holy crap, by the end of the day, I don't even remember what my middle name is, what day it is. Things get spinning. So at each meeting, you commit to new things. So really putting that in the meeting notes of what were the commitments, what each person committed to, and then what are the tasks getting out of it. Once you summarize it, now you didn't debate the ideas, but you built on them. And the whole process went from collaboration to alignment. Or as Jay says in the article here, the debate maker leads the team to architect its own roadmap to a shared goal. And the example we gave, editing this podcast video. Because when alignment is achieved, execution becomes simple. Everyone understands the what, the why, and the how. What's great about these 5 steps of active listening is they're like a 5-step checklist, like a pilot that you could run in your head. It could be a 30-second or a 3-minute meeting or a 3-hour brainstorm, but using this structure allows you to go from what could be something really tense to shared understanding and alignment.
You are not fighting against one another to get the best idea in the room. You are collaborating together to get alignment and clarity on multiple great ideas, which in the end creates those positive outcomes and maybe allows you to come out of that meeting or that conversation with several great ideas.
Because the active listening, that's just the frame. That's your mindset on how you approach these conversations. And as Jay said, that's the real debate maker, because it's not debate. It's listening and collaborating, or stop, collaborate, and listen, my boy Vanilla Ice, to get to that solution. But that's the frame that we see it. So it's active listening versus debate. So, but then there's also the tools, because the reason why debate is brought up, because there needs to be this exchange of ideas to sharpen ideas. And so debate's not the tool for that. Jay shares a different tool he calls the rule of 10. The rule of 10 expands thinking by pushing beyond the first solution into broader possibilities. Because that's really the thought of what debate would do, is that we would not stop at one idea, that we'd build and we'd build and we'd build. Instead, it becomes a defensive posture. And so the rule of 10 is essentially, some people talk about it's 10xing, making the idea bigger. Sometimes it isn't always making it bigger, but it's making it better, or finding 10 different ways in. So when we can do it, whether it be a brainstorm in person or on Zoom. I would do this a lot in the creative days when we were brainstorming maybe a Super Bowl commercial or a campaign. It's a powerful tool where you write a certain challenge or the creative brief, the problem you're solving. Everybody writes down 10 ideas individually on a Post-it separately, because that way you're fighting against the loudest person in the room, and then people run with those ideas, or they prematurely want to interrupt and start building. But instead, you could write the 10 different ideas, and then you could either put them on a board or read them one by one, and then you could build on them. So whether you do that at a group brainstorm or even just with yourself, if you're like, cool, I have this problem, this is what we're going to do. So we're lazy. We might just go straight to chat GPT. Boom, the first prompt. Boom, done. All right, we're done. Or the last, time you had this experience, we did this. But the rule of 10 forces us to dive deeper and ask, like that 4-year-old, why? How else can we do it? How else can we do it? How else can we do it?
Mm-hmm.
And research shows that the best ideas aren't the obvi ideas. They are between 6 and 10 because you've exhausted like the low-hanging fruit, and now you're getting deeper. You're getting deeper into solving the real problem.
Yeah. Now you've got your most creative ideas, probably the best that you could come up with, not the ones that are just chilling on the surface.
And then another way to do it is the 1-3-1.
Bring one problem, 3 solutions, and your number one recommended solution. This takes us from exploration, brainstorming into actual action. You could have 10 solutions, but at the end, you are going to bring that one recommendation that you have that you feel confident about to the team.
No, totally. It's such a simple framework. Like it could be a 5-sentence email or tweet, or it could be a full framework. But the simplicity is it takes people from everybody like talking about problems. It forces you to clearly define that problem, which isn't usually the hard part because everybody could find a problem, or everybody has an idea. Everybody's just throwing out those 10 ideas all at once. And then the leader's like, holy shit, like which one can we do? They're like, okay, cool. Here's 3 ideas. What should we do, coach? What should we do, leader? And while you appreciate the 3 ideas and you may pick a different one than they recommend, but ultimately it's about leading and taking ownership and making that one clear recommendation so the team knows where to go. It doesn't always stop there, but that's another way to facilitate this alignment and collaboration. It's not like, here it is, pick one and we're done. It's cool. Now, instead of improvising on the spot, that structure allowed you to have a clearly defined problem. You've done the 10x rule of 10 to get 3 really, really good solutions. And then now you have a huge springboard in a meeting where you can do that active listening again and build on that recommend or go back to one of the 3. And it allows this constant flywheel of action and execution as a team versus getting stuck in the mire of debating ideas.
And this is a great opportunity for leaders, for a real debate maker. Instead of just walking into a room with a group of people and saying, okay, everyone throw out your idea, let's debate what the best one is. You're having your team come together with their 1-3-1. And now me as the leader, I'm going to sit here with my 5 tools of active listening, and we're going to together collaborate to find that best solution. And maybe it's not the one that your team member recommended, because now we are all working together in alignment and we're going to find that best solution because they came prepared and you became prepared as that active listener to find the best solution to the problem.
Right. And so, well, how do we know what best is or what good is? Jay says in the article, good is defined by customer satisfaction, team member satisfaction, and profitability, or as we call them at 120 BC, the 3 pillars. And it's neither at the expense of others. We have to be able to measurably improve those 3 pillars. And so when you start that with that criteria as a team, that really eliminates that temptation to debate or take things personally and get all butthurt if your idea is not picked. Because whether you're doing that, the rule of 10 and finding these ideas, or even what you're actively listening for in the 5 steps of active listening, is things that measurably improve customer satisfaction, team member satisfaction, and profitability, neither at the expense of others. So it really removes that personal preference and how to evaluate ideas. So when you get to that recommending that one idea, or more importantly, going from talking about that one idea to going into action as a team aligned to do it, now you know things that it's going to do one or all those 3 things, which is ultimately what our role is as leaders within an organization and team to do.
When teams replace debate with structured listening, they gain better thinking, better alignment, and faster execution. They're not just there to be winners. They're there to work together, to collaborate, to align, and to find the best possible solution.
And then now, as collectively as a team with that shared roadmap, you can take action to GSD to get stuff done. And, a clear point I hear, going from that clarity to action, there's usually a huge speed bump right in the middle that I've run into in my career, is the desire for consensus. We have that one idea. You can't active listen and debate your way to consensus sometimes, because when you have 5 people in a room, you're going to have 5 opinions, especially if you have different departments and different silos and different priorities. But using the 3 pillars allows you to hopefully have the same priorities, but even then rarely will you have consensus. And so as a leader, sometimes we have to be like, okay, you've heard everybody, you've made the case for that one idea, and now you're asking for commitment, not consensus. Together as a team, we're going to commit to this one idea. And it's a little easier to make that commitment in good faith because now we've developed that idea together. We've shared these different ideas and stuff. And then now with humility as a leader, you could check your ego and be like, okay, we're going to move forward with this idea. Because if you don't make a decision, if you're not like the decider, things don't move forward. But you move forward to iterate, to fastly iterate. We're going to take action. We're going to do this. We're going to learn along the way. And if it shits the bed, then guess what? We had that 1-3-1 in the back of our pocket. We have 2 other viable solutions that we all agreed on. And now without missing a beat, we pick up the next one and we keep going. But ultimately consensus or groupthink is not the goal here, which is the other real, I think, Achilles heel of the modern workplace, of either wanting to debate everything and then wanting to get to consensus. Those are at odds with each other because if everybody's right, if everybody's opinion as a snowflake is equally valuable, but yet we all have to agree on one solution forward, then it stalls out and action doesn't happen. For the false debate maker, debate is about competition. For the new frame of the real debate maker or the active listener leader, the true multiplier of the leadership collective IQ, the real debate maker wins through active listening and structured collaboration.
That leader, the leader that you want to be, the real debate maker, leads the room by listening first.
I love what Jay drops here. I think it's practical for whether you're a Fortune 500 team or a young scrappy startup. I encourage you to read the article, hit the link below in the description, and you can read the entire series. Definitely check that out. Also, check this Leadership DM drops every Thursday. Watch it. The next one's on The Investor. But really smash that subscribe button. Don't miss a beat. We'll give you all kinds of resources on how to do this on your own. Or if you're like, F it, let's roll. Call up 120. Our boys, Jake and Jason, will pull up and, like Quantum Leap. They'll leap in, right all the wrongs, show you how life could be better, and then we leap out, right? We leave your team better, more executionally badass than when we found it. Because we really empower you with these principles and practices to build high-performing teams, to really unleash the multiplier and make your teams unstoppable. That's really just how we roll at 120. And it's not a commercial just because it's our mission, it's our cause. We do it with our companies, with our clients, and we'd love to work with you. All right, Faith. Well, that wraps it up for this DM. Zoom high five.
Zoom high five.
Woo!